All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashai, Bahashem, Rachak Double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations be unto the Akim out here pushing this gospel and truth and its sincerity to the best of their ability, given to them by Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. This is our brother Quan Wath coming back at you, Lord will, with the edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashai. Lord will, it is edifying. Lord will, it is straight to the point. And, this lesson, ultimately inspired by me driving down, the road heading back to the crib, man. And, I looked over and there was this Nissan Armada, driving. And, I tend to look at the license plates every now and again. And this one had, 144. It had 444. On the license plate, man. And anytime we see, 144 or 444, we call all YAHAWASHI Shai, we just, yell it out. And as I was doing that, man, the Lord ultimately put on my spirit, this lesson title, which is, Yahawashi is coming with an armada, which I got, the word armada on, right here on this online etymology. It says a fleet of warships. And what do warships do? They make war. And this is exactly what, Yahawashi, is coming to do, right? It says a fleet of warships, right? It says 1530s armado, right? From the Spanish armada, an armed force, right? An armed force, right? Ultimately meaning, a very large group, right, of military equipment and or military fighters, right, personnel, again, going to war, And again, this is exactly what Yahawashi is coming to do. The next major prophecy, right, which we were telling y'all was going to ultimately happen, right, which is Jacob's trouble, right, starting with our elder apostles, right, of Great Millstone, right. We told y'all that Jacob's trouble was going to happen. Jacob's trouble was going to pop off, and look, it's here, right. We're in Jacob's trouble, and it's only going to continue to get worse, right. And we also been telling you about the next major prophecy after that, which is what? World War III, as well as the most sought after prophecy, which is Yahawashi is coming, right. And when Yahawashi comes, he's coming with an armada, those angels in those chariots, right? Coming to do what? To make war, right? To destroy, these armies as well as the wicked, right? To remove the wicked out of the power seat and to do what? To deliver the elect, man. That's what we're looking forward to, man. But when Yahawashi comes, man, for you people, right, outside the elect, right? For the elect, it's going to be a joyous state. But for everybody outside of the elect, right, it's going to be a time of terror, right? Because Yahawashi ain't coming to play, man. So let's get into it. I got this right here, Revelations 19 and verse 11. It says, and I saw heaven open, right? And this is a vision, right, that John the Revelator, right, on the Isle of Patmos, that the Lord ultimately gave him, right? And he saw, right? He saw this, right? It says, and I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse. And you got to, hey, this is spiritual, right? This is something that's spiritual. He wasn't literally riding on an actual white horse coming out the sky. No, white is symbolic for pure, and horse is symbolic for power. So he was coming, right, and with pure power, right? Isaiah, the 47th chapter, right? The 3rd verse, Yahawashi said, what? I will not meet thee as a man, right? Yahawashi going to look like a man, but see, he's not coming in this, terrestrial body. He's coming in this celestial body, right? With spiritual power, right? And it doesn't stop there, right? Yahawashi is coming on a fathership, right? A fathership that of the likes has never ever been seen ever before, right? Only in visions, right, by the the ancient prophets and even the prophets today. Brothers having dreams and visions, as we read in Joel the 2nd chapter, as well as what is that? Acts the 2nd or 3rd chapter. Right, the Lord will, old men shall dream dreams, right? Young men shall see visions, roughly paraphrasing, But soon all of that is going to be seen by the entire world. Right? Revelations 1:7, it says what? And every eye shall see him. Right? Second Ezra, the 13th chapter, tells you he's coming on a ship so big, that Ezra couldn't see the ends of it. That's pure power. So I'll get back to it. Revelations 19:11, it says, I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. And that's talking about YAHAWASHI, right? It says, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. Right? He's coming to make war. Right? Hence, again, right, the Armada, right? It says an armed force, right? A fleet of war ships. It says his eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, right? Because what's going to ultimately happen is YAHAWASHI is going to consecrate all power, authority, and rulership unto himself, right? As we read, which I'm going to pull it out. We'll come back to this precept. This is 1 Corinthians 15 and verse 24. It says, then cometh the end, when he shall have delivered up the kingdom to the Most High, even the Father. Who is that he? Right? It's talking about YAHAWASHI, right? When he shall have put down all rule and all authority and power, right? And it says right here, for he must reign till he hath put all enemies under his feet. That's right. Right? So he's going to consecrate all that power and authority unto himself, And that's what it means by, that many crowns, right, ultimately upon his head, Continuing on, and verse 12 again, it says his eyes, Revelations 19:12, his eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. Right? It says, and he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of the Most High. We understand, right? You're reading the scriptures, right? YAHAWASHI was the Word made flesh, right? So again, this is talking about the Heavenly Father's only beloved begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, right? His true name is YAHAWASHI, And YAHAWASHI is pissed, man. You have to understand that he came down here, right, and was murdered, right, for no reason. Right? YAHAWASHI was 100% innocent. But yet he was put to death, man. The scriptures say that he was marred more than any man. And on top of that, right, as we see, right, YAHAWASHI, he went up to the, the right hand of the Heavenly Father. And he's watching, and has been watching his brothers, his friends be killed, right? The prophets, those who truly believe, the elect, be killed, man. So, you watch your friends, you watch your families be killed, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be pissed off, and YAHAWASHI is pissed, right? And when he comes, and he's going to be fucking pissed, man. Matter of fact, let's grab this, right? Because YAHAWASHI is waiting, right? This is Isaiah 41. And is it Isaiah 40? Travailing woman is Isaiah 42. Isaiah. Come on, right here. This is Isaiah chapter 42 and verse 14. It says, I have long time holding my peace. I have been still and refrained myself. Now will I cry like a travailing woman. Right? I mean, he's going to yell. Right? When YAHAWASHI comes, man, he's going to let out a yell, a war cry like never been heard before. Right? It says, and I will destroy and devour at once. This is what YAHAWASHI is coming to do. Right? When you go back to that Revelations and it tells you, right, his vesture dipped in blood, right? It's because YAHAWASHI is gonna fucking, hey man, he finna kill, man. YAHAWASHI is finna kill a lot of people, man. YAHAWASHI is finna wreak havoc upon the wicked. You're reading Isaiah the 63rd chapter, right? It tells you that his garment, right, is gonna be stained. His garment, his raiment is gonna be stained, right, with blood. You know, Yahawashi ain't playing, right? In verse 14 it says, "And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean." Right, so it's talking about those armies, right? That Yahawashi is going to come with, man. You know, that armada, right? And we know that because we read in Jude. It says in Jude, it says right here, it says Jude 1 and verse 14, it says, "And Enoch also, the seventh from Adam, prophesied of these, saying, Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his saints." Right? There you go. 10,000s of his saints, man. Right? I mean, he coming with that army, right? Says to execute judgment upon all, and to convince all that are ungodly among them of all their ungodly deeds, which they have ungodly committed, and of all their hard speeches, which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. That's right. Right? So he's coming to judge. Right? And again, that's going to be in the form of him making war and committing murder. Not committing murder, but killing, right, these people, man, for their wickedness, right, justifiably. You know, scriptures also talked about his, tens of thousands, right, his thousands and his tens of thousands. So like it, right, it talks about his, hold on, let's look up what does it say? 20,000. Right here. It says right here, it says Psalm 68 and verse 17, it says, "Chariots of the Most High are 20,000, even thousands of angels. The Lord is among them, and the Lord is among them as in Sinai in the holy place." Right. That's a fire one, but that's not the one I wanted. Oh, where we at? No. Nonetheless, right? That was, you get the point, right? Yahawashi is coming with the thousands of heaven, man. You know, an armada is going to be following Yahawashi, right? When he ultimately cracks the sky, you know. Go back to Revelations 19 and verse 14 again. It says, Revelation 19 and 14, it says, "And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses." Again, that pure power as well, right? Angelic beings, right? Followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations. And he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And he treadeth the winepress of the fiercest in the wrath of the almighty power. And he hath on his vesture and on his thighs a name written, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, man. And this is what Yahawashi is coming to do, man. Right? Yahawashi is coming to do three things, right? To destroy the armies, right? And remove the wicked, right, from power seat, right? To deliver the elect and to establish a righteous rulership upon earth, man. You know, as you read in the Lord's Prayer, as it is in heaven, right? Let it be on earth, right? Roughly paraphrasing, right? You can read that in Matthew's, the 6th chapter, starting at the 9th verse, right? The Lord's Prayer, This is what's coming, man, and we we're waiting patiently for it, man. Because we're tired of this fucking evil, wicked society, man. Right? We see where wickedness, had ultimately gotten us. Right? We want to see righteousness, man. So we're constantly, as scripture say, giving no rest till we make Jerusalem a praise in the earth. Constantly throwing up the prayers, constantly doing these lessons, constantly meditating on the scriptures, reading. Right? We were told to what? Occupy till I come, man. you know? And that's what we're doing, man. Lord will, you know, we be part of the elect. We're going to do it all the way to the end, you know? But YAHAWASHI is coming with that armada, man, you know? And it's going to happen real soon, you know? So with that, Lord wills, that final Lord will straight to the point. I want to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, YAHAWASHI, Bahashim, Rachak Wadash, that belongs to the other apostles, that the bishops of Great Millstone. Till next time, I say shalom.